All right, good afternoon. I think we'll have a few more people join and also for the benefit of recording, we've recording this session to send out to some of the participants that weren't able to join. So without further ado, we might make a kickoff. Thanks for joining. Thanks for taking the time to attend this session, Mastering Data Management in the Age of AI. My name is Jon Pepper. I'm the host for today's session. It's great to have you here, which hopefully will be practical, it'll be honest, and we'll be able to talk through how organizations are navigating AI. We'll go through a series of slides here in the webinar, and after that, we'll be able to open up for questions. Can either put your questions in the chat, which might be preferable because then we can address them, and we'll aim to wrap this up in the 45-minute timeframe. So I'm joined by Sahil, the Chief Growth Officer for Ausforming. And we might move on to a couple of slides here, Aaron, before I go through the formal intro. So myself, Jon Pepper, the founder and director of Maintain Technology. Maintain is an organization that has partnered with Humans of ERP. We provide services across the enterprise transformation sector, across government, non-government, mission-critical industries. Our organization focuses on helping organizations tackle very difficult problems. So we're practical, we're people first, driving real value. The goal of what we do at Maintain and why we did form the Humans of ERP series is also putting people at the center. Scrolling down, you'll see Humans of ERP getting a plug throughout this. It is the series of real people, real stories. And the first component, which you may have seen through LinkedIn and some of the other components, is showcasing people, showcasing the life of people across what they do in their personal life and also professional life. This is the first of a series of webinars that Humans of ERP is creating. And then we're also driving a menteeship program set that will be launched as the interest pursues. Next slide. So I've already given a little bit of a plug for Maintain being the sponsor of this webinar. We have a pretty strong catchphrase around being made to move mountains, and what that signifies throughout our branding is the ability to tackle difficult problems for our organizations. Very critical, as we know, most of us being attached to enterprise systems in some form or capacity, and that's the area that we specialize in. Next slide. So I'll introduce Sahil. Sahil will be talking through a large part of our webinar today. As it says on slide here, the Chief Growth Officer of Ausforming, a recently formed organisation, again, in the enterprise system space across Australia and New Zealand, driving various forms of digital transformation. Some very deep partnerships that Ausforming has. Maintain actually has a partnership, for disclosure, with Ausforming, but definitely big interest in the SAP Master Data Management space and enterprise architecture, hence the topic of conversation today around mastering data management in the age of AI. So I might hand over to Sahil as we move on to the next slide, and the next slide, to talk through the topic of mastering data. One key topic here, as I'll ask the question, Sahil, is AI, the hottest topic on the market at the moment. I don't think there's anything more hot and exciting. But just to start us off, I'd be keen to understand how AI is perceived today versus what it was perceived 1 to 2 years ago, and even as a stretch, how it may be perceived in 2 years from now, given the pace of change.
Excellent, Jon. You got me to address the elephant in the room straight away. Yeah, getting into the AI part of it, but yeah, just going back on how you're introducing the Humans of ERP, and I am part of that community. Thank you for having me as part of that group and also as part of your inaugural webinar. In a world where we live, you could have got an AI chatbot, an AI bot to sort of give you very polished insights, but you chose to speak to humans, and that is where the whole idea uh, of something relatable, something which I believe, from if I look at myself, maybe imperfections, which I find, and I've already started finding it something like on my LinkedIn feed. If you look across, and I've started admiring all of the parts which sound more human than what is so that is where I think what has changed, and this is from a sentiment and that perspective, that from the last 18 months, and where we get, like, we as an Ausforming, we get a bit of an exposure to a global community, is because we work with some of the global cutting edge technology players who work with some of the large enterprises globally, and we get a chance to get to look at a view and speak to them about that aspect, and that is what is driving it. So initial part of it, if you turn back the time 18 months, 2 years back, when it all started, the whole interest with some of the LLM models getting released for consumption, it was a mixed feeling. It was a mix of excitement, that it can do anything and everything, and it was a mix of skepticism, whether it's a passing trend, and also a fear of missing out. You don't want to be, as an organization, as an individual, not be looked upon as not adopting to that wave or not riding that wave and all that part, right? Where it has moved from that time to where we are today is, there's a much more common ground in terms of uh, completely adopting it blindly and writing it off. There's more practical, adoptive approach of how you go about realizing those tangible outcomes from this new world, or a new way of how you do analytics and data management and all of that put together, and help in decision making, or at times even outsource the decision making, put it this way. So that is where I think the adoption part is much more, um, is much more pragmatic. It's much more practical, and it has a method than to where we started off initially. So, so with that, probably what I would also highlight, if you're okay, Arun, if we can go to
I
the
might
next
just
slide.
jump in
Yeah,
there on one
sure.
topic there when we talk about this hype and also talking back. If you look at about what was 18 months ago, I just looked up the share price of Nvidia in 2023 and it was $14 a share. And you look at the share price currently today, it's about $200. That's US per share. So I looked at that 18 to 24 months ago when this topic started to bubble away, and didn't really realize how quick this change would be. And I think when I started that conversation around, well, what does it look like in 2 years' time? Um, I heard another podcast the other day from Elon Musk, and he was really talking about the next 5 or 7 years of how this AI growth will take place is extreme in nature. So I think one of the key takeaways to everyone on this, as you're starting to see this content and have this conversation, is if you don't already know, and you might be a bit naive, and you might already know but still be naive, this is a space that you have to play in. This is a space that you have to grow, you have to develop, you have to get excited on. You'll notice in some of the newsletters we've been putting out, it's also talking about some of the partnerships that even SAP has with Coursera and some of the other enterprise systems players that have partnerships. If you're not investing in yourself in this space, investing in the human, you probably will get left behind. So that'd probably be a key message I'd drive around key takeaways. Back to you there, Sahil.
Yeah. No, nicely put. Nicely put. And the way I was trying to tie it up with the aspect of where the sentiment shift is happening is, from the possibilities to what I see as uh, the intent or the outcome. Probably if you go to the next slide, and I have a little bit of a visual map around it. Yeah. So, so, so where it all started, what incredible things can be done on AI. So possibilities were endless. We were looking at um, anything and everything to replacement of jobs to potentially uh, doing business with bots interacting, and all of that was a part of where we were thinking of the extreme possibilities, let's say, in terms of the adoption, and what has changed and what is coming out as a way of things where it is getting adopted is what can what can AI do for me and my business, right? So that purpose, that defining that outcome, defining that real life like a use case um, uh, or something which can be tangible in terms of how I see the value outcome of that investment. That has added a lot of practical approach in what we see as so that nobody's trying to get uh, do a moonshot straight away out of an AI initiative, but taking those smaller steps, realizing those values, expanding the rollouts from adoption perspective, all of that is working out for customers on this journey. Having said that, there are it's not always about the rosy adoption part. There are pitfalls. There are initiatives that do not see a light of user adoption or organization-wide businesses adoption, which has its yeah, we can probably cover that part as well. But the idea around this is that the more measurable outcome that we are defining as a purpose is what is better achievable from a journey perspective, right?
I might pipe in there too around some of the possibilities in this space. So we're doing some work with an AI platform provider, principally in the business to consumer sector, and one of the engagements we're doing is trying to bring that into the enterprise space. But I get quite overwhelmed and excited at the same time when I see the possibilities of what this platform is able to achieve in such a short period of time. So when you look at the enterprise systems implementation life cycles, they're often multi-generations. They're years and years and years. In a short period of time, one of these agentic platform providers has been able to issue a statement to an agent, an agentic AI, and say, I would like this website to increase its traffic by 10%, which results in an increase in revenue by 2%. It will give the agent that command, and that agent is in the process of demonstrating that it's possible to speak to a agentic agent, such as you could speak to a director of sales, a director of marketing, a director of whatever business area. So when we talk about the possibilities in the future, and we've seen the same example 2 years ago to now, there's been an exponential lift, or at least a 10x lift in share price. We're starting to see that the types of capabilities that are coming down the track here are pretty exciting. So
Yeah, and yeah, no, you very rightly you called out, John, and the way 'cause I've come from a data background, and I've always advocated things about anything and everything about data. But the way I see where we are with the AI realization is also where we used to, or we are still experiencing that from a data perspective, that it has a lot of potential possibilities. We often call it one of the biggest asset and oil and currency for the organization. But the bigger question to ask is, what do you want your data to do for you, right? And when you start working backward from there is when you start realizing the actual value. So yeah, I mean, just from a perspective of how these two tie up from my perspective, AI for a purpose and data for a purpose, that is, and for a good purpose, yeah, and that is where it starts creating that meaningful change to the community, to everybody associated.
I think that's a segue to the next slide.
Yeah. Right. So absolutely, that's the part that how you look at AI as a maybe a vehicle or or uh, a launch pad, and data, the role that data plays around that is that it fuels the whole engine, right? And um, it is about, what purpose you want, what objective you want out of that vehicle. So like fuel, like actual fuel in a car, if you need a high performance engine, you need high performance fuel. And from a technology space perspective, that's high quality data, that's reliable data, reliable information. uh, AI is as good as data. You've been hearing this as part of that. But I think data and AI, when every time you talk about them, you talk data first and then AI. The reason for that, and that reason I think is, you need to get that first part of it right, where you make your data as reliable as potentially possible to be able to be consumed by your LLMs and AI models, and help you take decisions for your business. So yeah, now we're going back to our data space a bit, from where we're looking at uh, data from a perspective of data quality, and maybe the Dharma frameworks of accuracy and consistency and uniqueness, and all of those different parameters of how you want to call your data to be optimal or high quality. Now you have another aspect to it: is your data AI ready? Is it ready to fuel your AI engine, which is a next step, or a next stage in terms of, uh, the GIGO, the garbage in, garbage out perspective. Now you have an AI that amplifies things. So you have garbage in, and you might have a disaster out. So it's different, and it's much more sensitive, and for every business to make sure that they're doing it right.
And I think, Sahil, the key point to note here is you would have seen it in the media around different types of stereotypes or profiling of data sets that get used even in the policing sector. So there's some examples where the policing sector has, and these are studies that MIT or Google Labs or others had published, where they would disproportionately profile a various race as being more of a criminal than another race. And what that starts to then make you question is, if you apply those types of agents or those types of large language models on top of a database in an enterprise systems landscape, take it SAP or Oracle for an example, whether or not you can prove or disprove the bias that already exists within that data and how you're training those models. So it's definitely something to be very careful of when you're trying to implement something rapidly. The other one that I wanted to call out too was, and it was the previous slide. You don't need to go there, but it's just what are some of the possibilities? There are a few other items that we're working on around interpreting policies and procedures across organizations. So you might know it yourself. If you're a consulting organization, you know that you've got all these different policies around when you are and aren't allowed to travel, when you may or may not be able to charge per diems. If you're a mining organization, same thing. You'll have different policies and procedures relevant to your role, your location, and so forth. So there's some work that is happening to go and read those policies and actually come back with either A, the deficiencies of the policies, or B, being able to interpret that and feed that into the next level of the process, which may be pre-pay processing, or it might be expense management, expense processing.
Mm, mm. No, John, I just go back on your previous point. Very, very valid point that you mentioned about that. And you and I have probably seen the evolution of the whole analytics space as well. And what happened when you start analyzing things quickly on multiple different tables and start presenting it in a more attractive way, you often start believing that everything that we have being presented is accurate, right? As absolutely has been, you don't need to question that, and that's exactly the thing that with the outcomes that you see with the AI models of the suggestions and some of those decision making um, sort of things that help in decision making, that you often start relying on it, and this is where and as part of the pitfall, I would say, that you have to be. I mean, of all the technology work put in and all of that, I'm sorry, but you have to be remain a little skeptical of the outcome of your AI models, and for a very simple reason that are you 100% sure of the data that it is consuming is meant to be uh, uh, training those models from that purpose. It's not about having a data quality score. It is about whether that data is AI ready data. So that goes very hand in hand. You can't go on an AI journey ignoring data, and the purpose of doing uh, the data. There's one more very important part to it now. If you want to go on the AI journey, so yeah, that's what I wanted to emphasize on data as a data practitioner. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Sahil. Aaron, we might move on to the next slide. The next slide is sort of linking this back to then the human element and the element of Humans of ERP, which is the showcase of these webinars. One point that I'll make is that, as I said earlier, the speed and scale of this shift it's significant. It's quicker than I think anyone has imagined so far, and there's then general concerns, depending on what you listen to and what you read, around mass displacement of roles that can be codified and actually can be replaced. Some people even say the IT industry or the data industry may also be replaced at some form or fashion. So if that doesn't worry you, I think you should at least start to take a look at what your career may or may not look like in the next 5 or 10 years. I think the key part for that, from a personal human element, is if you look back over the multi generations and different revolutions, all of those revolutions have replaced various jobs in some form or fashion. Even basic accounting processes, or even a calculator to some extent, has replaced basic systems over the last 20 and 30 years that we've seen. You can go back further to industrial revolutions and more, but the key finding out of all of this, as a human, as a person involved in some way or another, is the people who adapt and upskill will be the people who are successful. So again, I'd reiterate that point. If you've been a bit naive and a bit complacent, I would reiterate the point around taking the time to double down and invest in this space. There are various types of roles that will be replaced in the future in general life, and some people say accountants, legal officers, transactional hubs, call centers, because that can all be AI. But then there's a lot of new work, and depending on where you come from, what sort of background, what you're interested in, ethics is a major part of this. We already discussed racial profiling as a component. That's one side of ethics, but there are other sides of ethical handling of data across enterprise and across continents as well. So I might give you the mic for a sec. Sahil?
Yeah. This is good insight, John. And yeah, we emphasized with talking about AI, we emphasized on data, and it's fantastic to talk about human in the whole space, the importance of human, and it should get all of us excited about why and how the part of the human element has more prominently started coming back to when you look at the hype cycle and the initial part of how probably humans were looked upon as something that can be replaced, right? So where it is all tying up together, maybe then same an analogy of the car, if I may put it that way, that we have an engine that can run very well. It looks good and all of that part. We have data as a fuel. We've got that ready and all that. Now, to reach a destination, to reach from point A to point B, we need those. What are we going to do with this engine and the fuel unless we have a purpose of where we want to reach, and whether it's saving time, whether it's more, more luggage that it can carry, more weight. All of that part would remain uh, uh, in control, or that's the purpose that the human would always define uh, to manage the destination of where we want to reach from out of all of this technology, right? At the same time, we need to have those guardrails. We can't run the engine on the road at our own leisure and our own pace, and we need to have those guardrails in terms of speed checks and signals and all of that part to make sure that it's safe for the it remains sustainable, it remains safe for the larger community. So all of those parts of bringing things together, putting it in a perspective that it can grow from there is going to remain human, all right? And I think more and more, and everything initiatives that are being defined, and the more I'm hearing from some of the customers, the initiatives that are being defined and keeping adoption and keeping the human, the employee force, the workforce, sometimes people at the customer and or the vendor side as well, or the community in large, if they have B2C sort of a business setup, to make sure that it is adding some value to their day-to-day life, right? And that entices them for better adoption, put it this way. So yeah, I mean, a human element is not going away anywhere, and it's probably after the hype cycle, it is more and more coming into the helm of the whole piece as we define it.
Yeah, and as we move on to the next slide, a comment I would have is linked around the human element again is don't despair. There are decisions that need to be made about how, who, what, when, why, where we would go through and implement AI, at least for the next few years. Maybe that will turn in as the speed of growth and the speed of improvement changes. So yeah, so again, reiterating that point, these are all human decisions, and one of the next slides I think does call out the future is humans interacting with AI. So I don't want to steal the thunder of the last point, but yeah, move on next slide there, and we'll talk through some common pitfalls, Sahil.
Yeah. Now, we've sort of covered that. I'll probably reiterate the point that the purpose on what the destination, where we want to reach from A to B, and putting humans at the center. That again, from if you compare it from the initial part of it, it was about putting technology at the center, and that I think that shift has started to happen, and there's more and more uh, aspect of what we want to achieve, what is the outcome, what do you want to do, what do you want AI to do for us, data and AI to do for us for a as an outcome, right? That helps us better trustworthy relationship with employees or a larger community. Having said that, the other part of it is you can't leave technology if you're talking AI. AI is eventually a technology. So the other part where we have seen, and some of the use cases that we have seen has not seen a life of like a production environment, uh, and remain there in the POC or a pilot stage for too long, was the over engineering. And it's very natural when you're adopting a new technology and you're trying to do multiple things around it. You end up doing or trying to boil the ocean from and rather than putting things into the real production environment and getting value out of it. The time frame, and it also creates a bit of a fatigue in terms of um, working on those aspects or those technology components. The other part is that is evolving pretty much very significantly. So you're not you have to keep the pace in terms of what you're releasing for your businesses. So I think the second part that we have seen in our conversations with some of the customers on their AI adoption is a number of initiatives did not see the life of taking things into production because they over-engineer it at the early stages. Um, yeah, and I can talk about this, the third space for hours. Having the right, you know, the ingredients from ambition to realization from AI, it has all those components of not just data governance, but data accessibility, data quality, all of this put together, the guardrails, the data security and privacy, all of that put together is what gives us the right platform to now realize that for our business and get the value out of things. So yeah, so these are the common pitfalls in terms of the AI adoption, and probably um, I'll also probably put another analogy if that resonates with listeners and you, John. That if you look at if you look at if you're running if you're designing a car that needs to run in a car race, right? Um, Speed is one thing that you want the engine to work on the optimal way and go fast, right? But there are so many other factors that goes around it. You need to have the structure, the right design of the, and you need to have robust brakes to, of course, to start off with. It's not just only about speed. You need to have the design that in case of an accident, it's not fragile. You need to have multiple different components put together. So the thing with AI adoption is that it is not about just about technology and running with uh, advancement of technology, but putting all of that AI governance and AI structure around it with every single element of data governance, data accessibility, privacy, all of that, which and reliability of data, of course.
Fantastic. There's a truckload of pitfalls in AI adoption. I think one that's probably not called out there is not getting started. So we've called that out as a common theme around being naive, but getting started is definitely important. Understanding small business problems that can be solved before trying to tackle big technology problems, looking for an answer. That's the old cliche there. Would be key. And we'll move on to the next slide. One or two left, and then we do have the opportunity for some questions and or answers, depending on what their questions may be. So let's jump into this one, Sahil.
Yeah, sure, John. Yeah, so this is the topic that has been spoken about so much, human or AI, and what is the future looking like with as we advance um, and we advance the whole ecosystem of AI, let's say. So first thing to understand, and let's agree on it. Like there's no doubt about it that things are not going to turn back. It is going to remain irreversible, and it's only going to grow from there on. And we will see more sophisticated. We will see more consumable, ready to and very natural language, and all of that is kind of making it more uh, adoption ready. We will see more and more aspects which will keep enticing businesses, people in general to consume it, right? Um, the role of humans, I mean, the whole part that we spoke about, the role of humans, we as a community, and what has changed probably from a initial skepticism and sort of fear is where we see this is we are going to be in the control. We are going to be in the helm of the whole aspect of how we consume this technology beast, right? And use it for good purposes, for purposes that will help us as a community grow, help our businesses, our ecosystem, and a sustainable growth. So this term about augmented intelligence. You probably, John, you would have come across this one, where we are not trying to, as human intelligence, AI is not there to replace it, but AI is there to augment it with all of its capabilities of, analytics and quick computation and all of those, bringing together the data points and providing those intelligent assessment and analysis. But when it again comes down to moving from point A to B, it will remain, and it has to be a human decision. So the future, if you ask me, a human or AI, the future is actually human and AI. So there is no either or in this one, but and to your point, that getting started, adopting it. I mean, those are not the things that you can that you have a choice now. You have to get on to the journey on AI and use it for your benefit in every sphere of life, business and personal.
Fantastic, Sahil. Thanks for that. So I think it's clear the future is a coexistence of us and them. We will say us and them. We don't know how it's going to play out. One thing I will note, if we move on to the next stage, is we get into an option for questions. If people do have any, feel free to post them into the chat. Maybe you can unmic yourself and show your face and ask a question. Maybe you can just hang up. It's up to you. But we'll be making some announcements in the next couple of weeks around some of the partnerships that we are developing in this space. So some platform plays, some functional use case scenarios, whether that's in the HR space, asset management space, payroll, or other. Also interested, coming back to a large number of us are pretty tied into SAP and SAP Joule, whether it's Joule for developers or Joule for consultants. A bit of work that we're doing in that space, so happy to take some time offline or direct connect and have more of a direct connection or conversation on that. So maybe we'll open for a moment. We may even be smart enough to have a pre-canned question if there are none in the audience. And obviously the thousands of people who will be watching this online when the recording is published, they won't have the opportunity to raise a question.
Hey, John. Pete speaking. Can you hear me?
Hey, Pete. Yeah, good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. I'll ask you guys. I'm intrigued on it. There's been a little bit in the media in terms of I suppose, from an Australian market and organisations, our adoption in terms of AI and a new tech lagging, compared to say some other countries, which is often, I suppose, not something in the past. I think Australia and New Zealand have always sort of been on that bleeding edge in terms of tech. What do you guys see as that blocker in terms of all organisations, in terms of adopting or modernising their data platforms for AI? Is it tech related? Is it process? Is it the fear or the people?
Yeah, good question, Pete. I mean, I would personally say I think it's lack of direction, and because it's coming at people so hard and so fast, they might not necessarily know where to apply their energy and effort. Then in saying that, if you look at from a technology point of view, and you would have seen it across the clients you work with and across industries, there is a lot of large, old, aging technology there. And some organizations, while they like the glossy disco ball of new modern tech, they can't keep their house in order with their basic tech in some scenarios. So I just quickly looked it up, and I don't know how true the stat is, but on average, our spend is 1.68% of GDP, and the OECD's is 2.7. So you're on the money with the trend. It's definitely lower than what the rest of the developing world is. There are opportunities out there too for some organizations to partner with, whether it's the hyperscalers. The hyperscalers often will invest energy and effort because this become somewhat a hyperscaler play in the long run. This is where their fee structures will start to play out using their platforms to deliver these technologies. The other one, Pete, I think is I called it out a few times, is naivety or complacency. So I'm not sure everyone in our generation gets it, because this is probably the first big shift in technology where our generation, anywhere from 35 to 55 or 60, is seeing the first real significant change in technology. Cloud computing, sure, that was one thing. APIs, sure, that was one thing. But if you work your way all the way back to the early SAP adopters, as an example, where they were programming with punch cards in, like, I don't know, the R2 version, that's what they tell me. Then moving into R3, R4, S4, ECC, S4, like the punch cards for clocking time to what we see today is very dramatically different. And I think this is one of the next changes for us. So whilst we haven't had to reinvent ourselves somewhat in the past, there is a need for us to reinvent ourselves to stay relevant in the future. And I actually think that the generation that's in the workforce right now, that has the 20 years of experience, plus or minus 5 years, is in a very unique situation, because they know what life was like before the mobile phone, and they know what it was like after the mobile phone. So they've seen the examples of how it can change dramatically, and so I think that sets our generation up for a pretty strong 10, 15 years ahead of us to be able to tackle this next change.
Yep.
What's your perspective, Pete? Do you have one, or?
I think the potential there is is so exciting, for sure. But I think the fear that people have in terms of either job security or being taken out of the decision-making process, and then I suppose how much do you fall or rely on the decisions that are being made. I mean, a lot of it will then come down to the quality of data that things are being programmed and are built on. But I think it's that's that trust, and I think in some parts of markets, in terms of how people are using AI, it's moving a lot faster. So I think in personal life, it's moving very, very quickly in terms of that adoption. But then the decisions that people are making are a lot smaller. Whereas at an organizational level, I mean, we can see it in recent releases, unfortunately, where it hasn't, I suppose, been used in a beneficial way, and it can cost millions.
Yeah, I think the fear is definitely a big part of even just Australian psyche as well. So the fear of being replaced might make you want to double down and put yourself into a corner that you can't be replaced. But I think we've seen that in the past, and it doesn't actually play out that well. All right, I think we've got Andrew and then Khalil.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's coming through okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah, I think that the reflection before around the unknown in here. How do you keep a human in the loop through this journey? I think is an important element to build into your design while your organization's building that muscle of how to use this type of approach to solve problems. And how ready is your organization to solve some of those problems comes down to whether it's successful or not as well. So I think there's really mitigations you can put in places from an organization perspective as you go through that journey, because we don't know what it looks like at the end. So it's not like we're designing for an end state in mind. We're working how to work with these new ways of working and having to adopt on the fly.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with that. We ran a use case about 6 or 7 years ago in an area where we did deep dives into data sets and crunched a whole lot of numbers manually, and then determined an outcome we presented that outcome, and we were pretty confident in the outcome, and we thought it was quite material in size and nature, but in the scheme of everything that was going on in the business, it actually didn't get the support to proceed. And I think what's interesting, we're playing a use case out now where it's a very high risk area, very, very high risk area, and we're considering running some agents over the top of this work to see whether it can provide us that finding faster and quicker. But at the end of the day, we're not sure who's willing to stand behind the machine and say we believe everything that it's telling us without pulling it apart and actually proving it ourselves. So I think that's another thing, that it's not quite there in a mature space that you would 100% bet your house on the decision that's being surfaced. Whereas, when you run a pivot table in Excel and you can slice and dice the data and have confidence, you would stand and bet your house there. So, yeah. Khalil.
Yeah, thanks, Sahil and John, for leading this session. Excellent work. Quick question to Sahil. I think he talked about the data governance side of it. I would like to know from your practical work experience point of view, how do you see AI influence the way data governance is done in big organizations in the next 5 to 10 years? And maybe if you can also pick out some of the challenges that you may already have seen in the corporate world due to the introduction of the AI.
Yeah. That's a great question, Khalil. So where I see the data governance part playing a role is where it comes down to what data we need for certain models or certain aspects of technology that you want to feed in and train on, and that is where it becomes prudent to make sure that all of those data that we have got a historical information about how we have been executing business, learning a few things, is has got a defined guardrails in terms of governance and who approves that set of data, and certain aspects of consistency and so data quality. And I was just putting this response on the chat that from our perspective, these three aspects of data quality management, the data governance part of in terms of defining the ownership, as well as the accessibility of information from multiple different sources. So that when it brings in together is when your AI systems or AI models are ready to sort of consume that information. But having said that, there are guardrails in the space of security and privacy, which again, you don't want everything to be accessible by all systems and all different people. So that again goes hand in hand. You want a highway of data, you want it to run free flow, but it's like that highway, you need to have security check or speed cameras and checks and balances to make sure it's not leading into a undesirable outcome, right? So from my perspective, if you ask me that where I see the role of data governance coming in and this part, it is a constant mechanism of injecting that fuel for that larger intent to function the way we want it to. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sahil. So with that, we might draw to a close. What I will say is this is the first of what we are building out in the Humans of ERP as a series of webinars. So we thank you for bearing with us as we work through our first one and figure out our content and figure out our presentation style and the flow. It's been pretty successful, I believe, for the first one. I would encourage anyone to either A, get involved in the Humans of ERP and showcase yourself. In addition to that, also, if there are some topics that you're interested in as we build out this community, I consider you all the founders of the originals, the OGs of the series. As some of these partnerships build out as well, and some of these platform providers in the topic of AI, we will see more and more AI topics come to play. So this one really just scratched the surface. What we will get into is some really deep capability that starts to get showcased. I think a little bit of that wow factor is what will turn in. Also, we have a range of other topics that we're interested in demonstrating and showing, not just specific to AI, because everyone's talking about this. So again, thanks Sahil for your time. Thanks for your insights. Thanks for the participants for joining, and we might wrap it there.
No, thank you so much for having me here, Jon. Lovely interacting with you and everybody on the call. Beautiful.
Excellent.